Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Justin Rombough podcast. And today I am welcomed again with my dad. Our previous episode about the Arizona football team was fun. We did that for Father's Day. So I thought, in honor of the Celtics winning their 18th championship, I thought we would talk about a little bit of their history and go over just kind of how we got here. And yeah, I'm excited. So let's get into it. So a couple weeks ago, Boston was able to secure their 18th banner, defeating the Dallas Mavericks. And before the series started, everyone was talking about how Luka and Kyrie, how they could be the best backcourt of all time, which I thought was blasphemous. I never really thought Dallas had a chance. I mean, Luka, he had me a little nervous, but they just kind of seemed to run out of gas. What were kind of your takeaways watching the finals?
Well, thank you for inviting me again, Justin. I really appreciate studying the Celtics in that. And yes, the one thing about the Celtics, a lot of people underestimated them. Most of the sports guys on the tube and that were saying that Dallas is going to win in 6 and stuff like that. And they didn't anticipate the fact that Boston had the best, what's called an ensemble team. And they had all the players were all really good, and they all could shoot three-pointers, and they passed the ball well, and they got along. And Joe Mazzulla did an excellent job as far as coaching them and preparing them. They had good plays on offense. They could all shoot the threes. 6-7 scored over 100 threes. So they couldn't just plug up the middle, because if they can let Jaylen and Jason drive, and if they get clogged up the middle, they can just pass it off to Horford or any of the other guys and shoot the three. So that's what made them so tough to deal with, is they had such a good team, no egos, no big alpha dog or anything like that. They all played so well as a team. It could change basketball, where they all don't just have one big star carry the load. This ensemble type team really makes them tough, and they set all kinds of records and did extremely well this year, and had the best winning percentage during the regular season, had the best playoff percentage, won the most games. They have all kinds of stats. They had 20 points, or led by 20 points or more in 50 games, which is a record. Or Golden State had it in 17. 15 or more games, won more than anybody else. Minnesota had 65. They had 80. They were the 14th team in NBA history to win 80 games with a 792 winning percentage. 86 Celtics were the best. They outscored everybody by 10.7 point game, which is the 5th best in NBA history. And they had the most 50-point wins 3, 40-point wins 4, 30-point wins 10, and 17 wins by 25 points or more, which is the most in NBA history. So it clearly shows this team effort, team game, this ensemble type really is effective. And of course, Joe Mazzulla is the most underestimated coach in NBA history. He should have easily won the Coach of the Year. He came in 4th, which is a grievous injustice. He should have won the Coach of the Year. Clearly should have won it. There's no question about that. He's an excellent coach. He allows his players to give feedback and stuff. He's not just my way or the highway stuff. Gets feedback from the players that helps keep spirits up, and he handles them very well, and they're very well prepared. And they won that series handily, 4-1. And again, 16-3 of the playoffs is pretty good. So they were considered the 5th best NBA team of all time. Like the Bulls back in the 90s was really good, and Golden State in like 17 was really good. The Lakers back in 71, 72 back then, and like the Boston team in 85, 86. They ranked right up there with those teams. And so this is arguably the 5th best team of all time in basketball history. And so they do really good. And so it was a good series, and a lot of those announcers had to practically apologize for making these predictions that they were going to get beat. They were that tough and well-deserving of their award, and yet they were very humble in that about the title, and the fact that on the player MVP was a 7-4 vote. Jason got 4 votes, and Jaylen got 7 votes. So. And they treat each other like brothers. I mean, they're really close and they get along. So no problem there as far as the MVP. They're both really good players, and that they work well together. And this lockdown, like Drew Holiday, is a very versatile Derek White, lockdown defender, can block it right at the basket. Al Horford, really good. He's the first Dominican player to win a world championship. And Porzingis, really good off the bench there, unheralded.
His game one performance was
right.
He came out of the gates. People were questioning how he would do off the leg injury, and although he did get injured again, but that game one he really took control.
Right, and he's the first Latvian player to win the world championship too. So, and he was ridiculed when he was drafted, and people underestimated him, and so they realized he was a good player. And so that's really good about all those players coming together, and people are going to take note of Boston and respect them for what they did, and all the coaches and all the players and everything. So just an excellent job by Boston.
Yeah, I think, like as you mentioned, the top six, like one of the best of all time, if not the best. Like our shirts show, with Horford, like you mentioned, and Drew Holiday and Porzingis, as we'll get to, they were huge pickups in this past offseason. We had to get rid of your favorite player, Marcus Smart, but I mean, we had to do what we had to do to win a championship. So I kind of wanted to look at the Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum era because, yeah, we had a really good top six and a really good bench with Pritchard and Hauser, but it kind of just stems from the Brooklyn trade in the 2000s when they traded away, in the 2010s actually, with Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. They sent them away to the Brooklyn Nets for a bunch of picks. And with two of those picks, as a lot of you know, we were able to get Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum third overall in back-to-back drafts. Jaylen Brown came onto the team as a rookie. He only played 17 minutes a game because right away we were already a solid team. That's back in the day when we had Isaiah Thomas scoring 30 points a game. We got to see him when they would play Washington. He played for them for a couple years. And then the next season, we were luckily able to get Jayson Tatum because we had Brooklyn's pick because they were not a very good team. So we were able to get Tatum with the third overall pick. Although we did have the first overall pick, we traded it down with the Sixers to get Tatum, which ended up in our favor because the Sixers took Markelle Fultz, who is a solid player, but he's nowhere near Tatum's caliber. And then the Lakers took Lonzo Ball, and we were able to get him plus another pick. So that was a huge pickup for us. And there wasn't too big of expectations put on Jaylen Brown and Tatum early on in their career, which I think helped them able to just grow, because sometimes when there's a lot of pressure on these number one picks or top picks like Wembanyama we saw, there's so much pressure on these young kids. And with the Celtics already being a good team, they were able to just step in and fill the roles. They didn't need the ball all the time. They didn't need to take all the shots. They just kind of fit in where they were. And Tatum in his rookie year, he had a pretty solid season. The big highlight of his rookie season was dunking on LeBron in the Eastern Conference Finals Game 7, which it was a close game. They lost, so they almost made the finals in Tatum's rookie season. And then they were eventually able to get Kyrie Irving, which there was huge expectations. There was a magazine cover, I remember, with Gordon Hayward, Tatum, Brown, and Kyrie all on the cover, and Horford. So it was kind of like everybody was expecting them to win. And then unfortunately, Hayward injured his ankle in the first game against the Cavs, so he was pretty much done for that season. And it was just a little too much your turn, my turn with Kyrie and Tatum and Brown. It was a good team, but they eventually got rid of Kyrie. And then something that I noted watching Tatum, being a huge fan of his ascension right before COVID was something that I wanted to note. So before COVID, so in February 2020, before then, in the 2019-2020 season, he was averaging about like 20 points a game, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 45%, 30% from the three-point line, like 35%, 80, middle 80s free throw. But then in February 2020, he started to really ascend to the superstar that we know him now. 31 points a game, 8 rebounds per game, 3 assists, basically 50% from the field, 48% from 3. He was really hot that month, and then 77%. And then obviously we took a little break because of COVID, and then coming back in the bubble, we ended up losing to the Heat. It was tough. The bubble was a challenge in itself. And then the next season, Tatum kind of took the mantle and ran with it. That was just kind of a weird season. There was no fans, and obviously at the TD Garden, the fans are a huge part of the Celtics being really dominant at home. And then the next season, as we saw them had a really good season, but they couldn't quite get it done against Golden State. We saw one of the games when we were in Hawaii on vacation. Obviously, coming back, they learned a lot from that finals loss, and they were down 3-0, almost came back. That would have been the first ever in basketball to come back from the 3-0 lead, but Tatum sprained his ankle. And then, like we mentioned, we traded away Marcus Smart, Brogdon, Robert Williams, and we got Porzingis and Drew Holiday, which Brad Stevens just was able to steal all those players away, like we stole away those draft picks from the Nets. And like you mentioned, we were able to have the deepest team together. And another thing that needs to be mentioned, the Eastern Conference was pretty depleted this playoffs. We had a pretty easy run just because Embiid was injured for the Sixers, Giannis was injured, Miami, Jimmy Butler was injured, and we kind of faced pretty solid teams, but nothing too competitive. Cleveland, we kind of got through them pretty easy. Indiana was kind of just happy to be there, and then obviously Dallas, Luka was pretty beat up, and Kyrie had one of his worst series. So, I mean, people can kind of try to put that against the Celtics, but I mean, we won when we needed to, and so we can't control what injuries happen to the other teams. So yeah, that's kind of the Tatum and Brown era. I think they're one of the best duos in the NBA, if not the best. They're now the most highest paid. They're the most highest paid duo in the NBA. So obviously Boston did their thing by re-signing White, giving Tatum the huge extension. So we'll see if we can keep this team together. Obviously, Horford is nearing retirement. He's definitely coming back for one more season. So, yeah, I mean, what have you seen the last couple of years watching the Celtics?
Well, one of the things I've noticed, of course, is this stems back from the Red Auerbach era. They would always make very crafty trades and do that. And now in the modern era with Brad Stevens, he does the same thing. They find ways of getting the players they need, the style, and getting the trades and that, and find a way. Even though a guy like Marcus Smart was really popular now, if they found a way, they said, well, he can tap out the other team, and then getting Drew Holiday in that, it was a good replacement. So at least they were able to get that, and getting Porzingis was a big key. He took in control of game one. It was a close game, and he comes in, and they get a huge lead, and Dallas couldn't handle it after that. So a big key was getting him, because as you say, Al's getting closer to retirement, and you wonder, a lot of people projecting this team can win 3 titles with the players they have, and possibly three-peat or maybe 3 out of 4, something like that. But it depends how Al Horford holds up, and they do excellent as far as coaching and that. So I think they could do 3 championships with this team.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, finding a backup for Porzingis, just because his injury history. When he's healthy, he's a really good big man for us, but obviously his health has been a bit of an issue. Keeping the top 6 together, I think, will be of utmost importance. Hauser, I think, if he makes that rotation, could be a huge help. He's one of our best 3-point shooters. And obviously, looking forward, the Eastern Conference is going to be a lot tougher this next season. Milwaukee, Giannis is back and healthy. They're always an opponent. Philadelphia, they picked up Paul George, so they'll pair that with Embiid and Maxey. And then Miami is always pesky. And then New York, they added those Villanova boys. They finally got the quartet together with Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo. Orlando and Indiana, they're on the up and up. And then obviously whatever Western Conference foe we'd have to face in the finals is going to be tough. The West is always tough. So I think the future is definitely very bright. Re-signing those guys, we did what we had to do. We didn't lose White to not wanting to pay him, and obviously we needed to keep Tatum and Brown together. I hope that we have them. They're always Celtics. Like, I hope we don't get rid of Brown or lose Tatum. So if we can keep those 2 together and just build around them, I think we have a pretty bright future.
Yeah, I don't see them wanting to request trades or anything like that, because they know what they have and they don't want to tear up the team. And I know Brad Stevens knows what he's doing, running the team like that. And he'll get some good players, and we've got some coming up too that are really good. We'll talk about later on. But yeah, they're really set, and as long as they don't get complacent, if those other teams that have been healthy, they still would have probably won those series. But instead of 4-1, it would have been 4-2 maybe, or instead of 4-0, it'd be 4-1 or 4-2. So they would have still won, but it would have been a little harder. And then they proved how tough they were against Dallas, and everybody thought they were going to lose to Dallas, and they beat them. So they had no control over the schedule, as Justin pointed out. They had to play who they had to, and they did the best they could, and they showed that they are good. But teams will be gunning for them next year, so they can't be complacent. They have to play like they didn't win the title. They got to play hungry, like they didn't win it, and play like this year.
Defending the title is always the toughest because everybody's gunning for you. So it'll be interesting to see just kind of how they handle it. They seem a pretty poised group. Like Tatum is pretty stoic, and Jaylen Brown's everybody's pretty level-headed. We don't really have anybody losing their mind, and everybody keeps everybody accountable. Derek White's very quiet, just gets the job done. Al Horford's kind of like the mentor to all of the young cats. He's mentored Brown and Tatum since they were rookies. So moving on, I heard that you had a lot of history you wanted to share. So if you want to give the audience a little history lesson.
Oh yes, I do like to cover history whenever I cover teams in that. And it was Walter Brown that founded the Celtics back in '46 and was named after a previous team, the Celtics, a barnstorming team back in the 20s. So he founded in '46 there, and they kind of struggled the first 3 years. And one team had a dispersal draft, and Bob Cousy was available, and they really originally didn't want Bob Cousy. They thought it was too flashy, but they took him because the other two players they wanted were taken. So he started building things, and they started winning on that, and then they were able to get Bill Russell. So 11 years after they were founded in '46, they won their first championship, and then lost in '58, but then they rolled up 8 in a row, 59 to 66. So 8 in a row in pro sports is almost unheard of. So that's probably a record Boston Celtics will always have. And then got a couple more in the 60s, 68, 69. So 11 and 13 years is unheard of. But it was Bill Russell that led the way, and he became player coach there halfway through. Ed Auerbach gave up the coaching duties. So he did that, and so he was the first African-American coach in sports history. So very progressive on the Celtics' part. And so they did really good. And then they had to do rebuild. All these teams have to go through rebuilds and stuff. And in '74 and '76, they got, of course, Dave Cowens, John Havlicek, and JoJo White were the big guns they had, and won those 2 titles. And the '76 one was against the Suns, and that had triple overtime game was one of the most famous games in basketball history, and they did win that and won the title there. So they did a quick rebuild after Russell and them left and got some new players again. Red Auerbach is the absolute genius as far as getting players and getting trades in that, and they followed up with the Danny Ainge and now Brad Stevens. But again, Red Auerbach was the one that was the leader of that. He was involved in basketball his whole life, and they got him, and he was one of the early ones there. And then they did another quick rebuild after those guys left, and getting, of course, Larry Bird and Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish. And one thing to get Bird is they used a little-known rule that you can draft a player before he graduates from college. And since Bird, I think, had played 4 years, he had 1 year left, but they drafted him, and then he played for Indiana State 1 more year and then got him a year later. It's rarely used, but, of course, Boston's pretty shrewd with the moves, and so they got Bird. And they did it, so they got a trade from Golden State to get Parrish, plus the draft pick, and they used that draft pick to get Kevin McHale. And Cornbread Maxwell was on those early teams too. We have his book here, and it's very, very informative book in that. And Cornbread won the MVP in '81 when they won their first of those 3 titles, and they got the other guys in there. But very informative book on that about Cornbread. And anyway, so they got through and got all those players. Now they did go quite a skid there without any championships. In the '90s was the only decade they didn't win any championships. They went through players in that, but in '08, they, of course, landed Pierce, Garnett, and Allen. They built a good team there and then won the championship there. And then another long stretch, and then in '24, they won it this year. Of course, Justin pointed out about how they traded away Garnett and a couple of them to Brooklyn along with Jason Terry. And they used those draft picks. Everybody thought Brooklyn got the better of the deal, but Boston ended up, because those late draft picks, getting Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And so that was pretty good to do that, how something back in 13 when they'd had that trade led to this title 11 years later. So that's how the building process was. They won a lot of Eastern Conference. They went there like 5 times, but they finally won the title. So that was really good. kind of a brief history on that. And they named them the Celtics, of course, owing to the Irish population in Massachusetts. Is 18.5% of the population of Massachusetts is Irish, and 9.5% in the whole country. So owing to the Irish heritage is why they took the Celtics mascot. And green, obviously their most prominent color, and Ireland is all green. So you see why it's green. And on the TD Garden, it's nice to have a green shadow light on top of the roof there. You can see the green on pictures in that at night. They have 11 conference titles, 34 division titles, and 23 retired numbers, which is the most I've ever seen when I look up teams that have retired numbers. So it's an incredible tradition to have that many numbers, and they all hang on banners. And the banners, all their championship banners, retired numbers are there on the right-hand side with all of them there. So they have second highest winning percentage, 2/100ths of a point behind San Antonio. So if they get a good record next year, they might overtake San Antonio and have the winningest percentage. So they have the most wins ever, over 3,000 victories, and again the most retired numbers. So they've got an incredible history. And it was fun looking up all the information about them. Of course, the one thing I did find in Cedric's book is it was 108 degrees in the Garden when they played in the Lakers, one of that series in the 80s. And they took advantage of the heat because all the other teams had air-conditioned buildings. So really wear these teams down, because 108 degrees is really rough for the fans, the refs, everybody running the game, and then the players themselves. I don't know how they did it, but they finally got air conditioning when they built the TD Garden in '95. And now it's considered outdated. It's only 30 years old. So they're trying to find a new arena with the combination with a casino and a hotel. That's kind of the big thing these days. So who knows how much longer they're playing the TD Garden. It's a beautiful gym. But hopefully I don't know where they'll get it, but I'm sure it'll be really nice too. And of course, the rivalry with the Lakers is one of the biggest rivalries there is. It's interesting because most teams, college, pro, whatever, your biggest rivals are the ones closest geographically. And of course, obviously the Knicks and the Brooklyn Nets and the Washington Wizards and the Philadelphia 76ers, arguably they're big rivals, but the biggest is the Lakers. So it's like the biggest intersectional rivalry in the country. The only thing that matches that possibly would be the Notre Dame USC in college football. That's a big intersectional rivalry in football, but every Celtics fan would say the Lakers is the biggest rivalry. And the early days, of course, they were in Minneapolis, but they moved to LA in 1960. So most of the titles that the Celtics won, it was against the LA Lakers. But they were Minneapolis until '60. So that was a big thing, big history with the Lakers on that. Of course, now I think they're 9-3 against them in the finals. Boston winning 9. A lot of them were 4-3 wins in the last game. So if the Lakers had won that 7th game, they'd have a huge lead. But Boston is 18-5 in the finals, and Lakers are 17-15. Nobody else is close. Golden State has 7 wins and Chicago 6, so nobody's even close to the Lakers and Celtics. So it is a big, big rivalry. So that's what I wanted to talk about with the history in that, just a brief history of how they built the teams. One of the things that's a lot harder to win a title now than it was back then, because we have 30 teams now, whereas back in the days when the Celtics were winning all those in a row, there's between 8 and 12 teams. So just starting out, but now there's 30 teams. And you wonder with the expansion how many more teams they'll have, say, 30 years down the road without 40 teams. Who knows? Which will make it even tougher to win. But somehow Boston's been able to hang in there and has the second best winning percentage and now have 18 championships. So we'll see if they can pull off the three-peat. But again, the other teams are so tough. There's a whole list of them Justin mentioned that are really tough too. So just have to see with how they all do next year with trades and drafts and things like that. So that's a wrap on that, Justin, on the history. But again, it was neat looking up all that history on the Boston and that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think just going forward, keeping Brown and Tatum together, obviously the contracts are going to get out of control. So, I mean, we'll see how long they can keep this top 6 together. I mean, we're doing pretty good in the draft. Like, we got Shireman, who I think could be a good replacement for Hauser. I think if Hauser keeps developing, he could be a huge piece for us. We'll see how long we can, keep this run going of making it. I obviously think we're going to continue to make the Eastern Conference Finals. We've been making that since Tatum and Brown. We've only missed it a handful of times, maybe once or twice we've missed the Eastern Conference Finals. But I think the future is bright in Boston. So any closing thoughts?
That Baylor Sharman, yes, I saw some videos on him. He's really good. He does all the things the Celtics want. The passing, he can shoot the three, he can drive it to the hoop, and he does it all. And he's like another Hauser, basically, is what they're saying. So you're right. If they lose Hauser, he fits right in. He'll come off the bench right away, I'm sure. And him and Peyton Pritchard will be the two guys off the bench with Porzingis to be the 8-man rotation, possibly 9. And see about the other guys they have on the bench. I'm sure with Coach Mazzulla working with them, they'll all improve too, because he's really good. And give them more playing time. It'd be interesting to watch games if Boston has a substantial lead, see if the whole bench is out there and how they run things and do the same plays that the starters do and watch them in action. So, because I know he can build all those players up. But this Anton Watson's the other player that came in from, I believe, Gonzaga. He's supposed to be really good too. He may fit in. They do really good again on the draft picks. Here, Baylor was the 30th draft pick, and it was a steal. They drafted very last, and yet it got a lot of attention with the draft people. And they found him there at Creighton there in Omaha. And so he's really good. It's a lefty too, so 10% of the population is left-handed. So to see him hook up those threes is really cool. So another good addition. I'm sure he'll make the team, and we'll see who else they get. And I don't think they'll make too many dramatic trades. Certainly, they don't want to give up the heart and soul of the team with the ones they have now. They really got it going. So they're a runaway freight train right now.
So before we wrap up, obviously I started following the Celtics because I liked watching Tatum in college at Duke, and he got drafted in 2017, and he's been my favorite player. So you started following them a lot more when I started to like them, and you liked Marcus Smart. So now that he's not on the team, who would you say is your favorite player?
It's a tie between Drew Holiday and Porzingis, okay? And Drew, he's so pesky and versatile. He does everything, and he'll steal the ball. He'll go for an offensive rebound. Most of the guards will drive back and cover on D, but he'll shoot in on the O boards and grab 6 or 8 a game, and that's like 20 points. So it can help the team get 20 points or so. You see it on some of the highlights. He does stuff like that, and he's just so unheralded in that. He'll pass it off. He'll set a pick, and then at the very last second, he'll dart out and pass it to him for an easy lane because nobody's guarding the guy setting the pick. You just think he just sits there at the pick. But no, Drew will take off. Easy shot, and that's why I like him. And Porzingis I like because he was so heavily ridiculed when he was drafted by the Knicks. They were really on him about that. And I said, you got to give the guy a chance. And he did. And he comes from Latvia, which is the middle of those 3 Baltic countries, the Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania down there. And they got a lot of good players coming from those parts of the world now. So we get a lot of, it's like a UN meeting now with all these players from all over the place, not just Americans. But I'm glad to see him doing so well after he was so ridiculed. And so those are my 2 favorite players. Drew is really good, and of course Porzingis is really good. I usually don't like to pick the big stars. I kind of pick the other ones too because they really help out, and I think they really made a difference because Drew got a title with the Bucks helping them out a couple of years ago. So that was a good pick. Again, they know what they're doing there, and those are the 2 guys I like. And of course, I know everybody else probably picks Brown and Tatum as their favorites because they get the headlines in that. But I like those 2, and then that. White, he's pretty good too. The guy who came from San Antonio, he's a really good player. He likes a lockdown defender. I like good defense, and he'll block the shot at the hoop there. He'll block it right then. He'll get him at the last second and block it away. What's his name?
Derek White.
Derek White, yeah, he's really good. They got him from the Spurs in another trade, so he was really good too. So I kind of like him too. But those are the guys I like, and of course Peyton Pritchard. He bombs it out from beyond the 3-point line. He bombs it with 4 seconds left, 3 points, and makes a big difference. And that's what Joel Mazzulla sent him in at the last second because they didn't have enough time to drive it all the way down. So they said, okay, Payne, get the ball. And they heaved it past the timeline, so it's like 50 feet out, makes it.
Made it twice.
Yeah, twice. So he said, well, and Mazzulla said it makes a big difference to have him in because if he makes it, it increases your percentages. They've done stats on that because Mazzulla checks everything. So that's why they got Peyton Pritchard on the team. He's good defense, but he can bomb those from 50 feet out and change the game. So but I like him too. So again, some of these unheralded types that I like. So those are the ones, and the headliners, of course, Brown and Tatum really lead the way, and they work so well together. Brown, of course, coming from Cal Berkeley, and Tatum from Duke. So yeah, excellent players.
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to get together and give our thoughts on Boston. You had one more thing you want to mention before?
Yeah, one thing is I'm into geography and stuff, and I just want to point out that in New England, they have been extremely blessed with a lot of championships. And a lot of Facebook, they pointed out about Boston's titles, but I want to extend it out a little bit farther too. We had the opportunity to go to Boston, and we went to Foxborough and Storrs, Connecticut, all in the same day, and see a lot of different championships, because Boston, of course, the Celtics have 18 titles, most ever in NBA history. The Patriots have, right there in Foxborough, which is midway between Boston and Providence, Rhode Island, they have 6, dating from 2002 to 2019. And the UConn men's basketball team from 1999 to 2024, they have 6. The UConn women's have 11 from 1995 to 2016. And the Boston Red Sox, they came back from 3-0 down to the Yankees, and ended up going all the way and win it. So the only baseball team to do a 3-0 deficit and win it. They have 9 championships, 5 way back when, and 4 recently in 2004, 7, 13, and 18. So 9 overall. And the Boston Bruins, when we were there in Boston in 2011, they won the Stanley Cup, and they won 6 from 29 to 11. So that's 56 total championships between all those teams in Boston and Providence and Storrs in various sports, college and pro. So New England has been extremely blessed to have so many championships there. And it's, of course, the start of the country back in 1620 when we got a foothold in the country and started growing in New England. Incredible history there, with very blessed with so many teams with recent championships and championships from long ago. So it was great to look up all that and study it, and I hope to get back soon to New England and check all that out and see what gym they get. I do want to see the TD Garden and see wherever they plan the new gym in that. So hopefully things continue to go well for all those teams. It's a lot of fun following them.
Yeah, and it's easy to root for Boston too, especially when we had our guy Gronkowski. He was on the Patriots, and that was fun watching him. So we'll always have a tie to Boston, and with my guy Tatum. So yeah, this has been fun. I'm glad we were able to come on here and do another podcast. So thanks for coming on.
Okay, thanks for having me, Justin. I really appreciated it. Covering the Celtics, it was a lot of fun, and to win the championship this year and see them play team effort. And that's the ultimate thing, a team game. And I think it'll hopefully change basketball and have it that way, rather than just have one star take over the show. And make it so, give everybody a shot, and make it every player makes a difference. So again, thank you.